Eugene Patrick O'Neill, or Paddy O'Neill as he was known, was one of Australia's greatest trade unionists. His legacy to generations of Broken Hill families, of generous wages and conditions, and his impact on Australian industrial relations earned him the title of the Uncrowned King of Broken Hill. Paddy was born on June 12, 1876 in Wentworth, New South Wales, to James and Catherine O'Neill. They had immigrated from Southern Ireland, and Paddy became the youngest of 5 children. Paddy's family moved to Broken Hill, and he worked for numerous mines over his working life, including the Broken Hill Proprietary Mine, which later became BHP, the Central Mine and the North Mine. He witnessed a number of strikes during those early days and was always bewildered and frustrated at the bitter infighting and lack of organisation of the 20 trade unions representing the working people. The conditions were extremely poor, the wages were low, work was hard to find and even harder to keep, and many men died on the mine. But the mining companies were able to consistently win any industrial disputes. After this, Paddy became involved in the AMA union and was picked to represent the workers. Paddy's dream was one united union, an organised union representing all workers from all disciplines that maintained solidarity even in the darkest times and fought for workers' rights and their wages and conditions. In 1899, Paddy married Mary Ann Gearan and they had 6 children: Margaret, Mary, Ruby, who died aged 3, Anne, Eugene and Eileen. Times were tough during those years, as Paddy was eventually blacklisted by the mining companies because of his involvement in the union, so he eventually took a job with the council as a sanitary cart worker. A lot has been spoken about this time as a sanitary cart worker, as it wasn't the most glamorous job at the time, but it was honest, and every day the bedpans from people's houses needed to be emptied. On one occasion during this time, a very well-to-do upper-class lady made a comment to Paddy and his mate as they were carrying the pans to the cart. She complained vigorously about the atrocious smell coming from the carts. And Paddy turned to her and said, "Don't worry, lady, we haven't picked yours up yet." Soon afterward, Paddy became the secretary of the council's union, the Municipal Employees Union. During this time, he worked hard to establish links with the other unions and convince them that one united union was the way forward. In 1909, there was a 20-month strike, and finally the unions galvanised and won the battle. Paddy's theory had finally worked, and by now all the unions agreed it was the way of the future. The 20 unions formed the Barrier Industrial and Political Council in 1923. Paddy fought extremely hard to remove the political part of this title, maintaining that the council's function is to govern matters that were the concern of all unionists, and individuals should be free to govern his own political views. Paddy won. The Barrier Industrial Council, the BIC, was formed and Paddy was elected secretary. Paddy's strength was not in his ability to play hardball and threaten or call strikes. Pretty much anyone can do that. His ability to listen, to build respect and trust with mine managers, and convince the militant element of the union that his way, his style of negotiation, was the way of the future. Paddy went on to negotiate 7 collective union agreements between 1923 and his retirement in 1949. Each agreement improved wages, conditions of employment and benefits for all workers. Since then, there have been no significant strikes in Broken Hill. Paddy was the person who introduced the lead bonus in 1925, which is a bonus payment to all employees based on the lead metal price. This over the years has made up a significant part of every employee's take-home pay, even to this day. He introduced the closed shop system, which had no parallel at the time, and Broken Hill workers became the best paid in Australia. No worker could live in Broken Hill unless he was a member of one of the unions affiliated with the BIC. He settled fair prices for goods and services in town and made sure nobody was ripped off. He negotiated the introduction of Labor Day picnics for all employees and became the president of the St Patrick's Day picnics at Penrose Park, where he presided over for many decades. He was instrumental in instituting greyhound racing in Broken Hill and was also heavily involved in local boxing, which was held at the Trades Hall. He was also one of the 3 founders of the BIU Band Hall. police regularly called him to settle disputes and adjudicate tenancy cases, or talk sense into a feuding man and his wife. Desperate mothers would come to his front door and plead for Paddy to save their son, who was up on charges. Eugene Patrick O'Neill died on May 24, 1953, on Pentecost Sunday, 2 days after receiving a special decoration from the Pope Leo Cross called the Cross Pro Excelsior et Pontificat, in recognition of a lifetime of service to the Catholic cause. It was presented to his son Eugene by Bishop Fox. The funeral was the biggest ever seen in Broken Hill to this day, with the police giving a guard of honour and many thousands of families coming out to pay their respects and their thanks. Paddy was recognised by the community, and O'Neill Street in Broken Hill and O'Neill Sports Centre, where tennis and netball are still played in Idide Street, were both named in his honour. There's often been confusion in Broken Hill over Paddy's name, as there was a prominent BIC president after him called Paddy Shorty O'Neill. And although Shorty made a valuable contribution to Broken Hill unionism, history tells us that his achievements cannot be compared to Eugene Patrick. Paddy and Mary are today survived by around 100 descendants of their grandchildren. Their daughter Margaret, or Maggie, went on to marry Cornelius Cunningham, and they had Patricia, Mari, Jim and Eugene. Mary never married or had any children, and Anne married Norm Jones and also didn't have any children. Eugene O'Neill, the only son, married Eileen, and they had three children, Joan, Mary and Terry. Eileen married Mick Lynch, and they had Michael, who unfortunately died at age 3, Margaret, Patrick, John and Chris, who eventually went on to become Chief Financial Officer of BHP, the same company his grandfather worked for many years before. Perhaps the biggest learning for us today is a phrase that he quoted as saying many times in his life, and it's to do with listening. He said, "Don't be in too big a hurry to talk. Let the other chap talk. You listen, and then you talk." Broken Hill is very unlikely to ever have a king, and rightly so. But if it were to have one, it would be Eugene Patrick O'Neill. Until then, he will remain the uncrowned king of Broken Hill.
The world sees it rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes, listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. One minute I held the key, next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon pillars of salt and pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, once you've gone it was never, never an honest word. And that was when I ruled the world. It was the wicked and wild wind, blew down the doors to let me in, shattered windows and the sound